Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another brand new TNG release to check out, and this is another one of those figures that almost went under the radar when these figures were first unveiled to us. They did show off quite a few in their line, but this, like the Plesiosaur, was one that wasn't really shown off too much on like eBay or AliExpress, so it was one that, unless you had seen some of the images from the Toy Fair in Hong Kong where they showed off the full line, you probably wouldn't even have known that this one was coming. But we have the Oviraptor, and honestly, looking at this Oviraptor, it might be my favorite TNG figure overall when we actually pull this out and check it out. There's a pretty good chance, I think, but it looks super cool here on the front of the box, and you can see, again, we've got the TNG logo, the species name, then over here on the side, some information on the Oviraptor, which is always fun that they include that stuff. Some info down here on the underside as well for the TNG figures. So let's pop this box open and check out our Oviraptor. So here is the Oviraptor, and man, is that ever beautiful. Like, really nicely done figure. I think the sculpt looks great on this. The paint as well looks great. I actually am a very big fan of the paint scheme that we have on this one. And yet again, I kind of see like Papo influence in this, and that seems to be the case through a lot of the TNG line. Not all, but a healthy dose of the TNG line seems to be kind of inspired by other dinosaur figures that are out, almost like they're giving an ode to those companies by releasing their own versions that look kind of similar, but at the same time not exactly similar. This almost looks like an updated, closer to being an accurate interpretation of the Papo Oviraptor, because we have similar as far as the pose goes. We also have an egg in the hand, just like the Papo version has, but this time we actually have some really nice feathering moving through the course of the figure, which looks really nice. And again, the paint scheme on this is actually quite beautiful. So I'm pretty darn hyped about this one. Let's jump to a closer look at this gorgeous Oviraptor right now. So, starting up here at the head sculpt of our Oviraptor, you can see it looks really nice and has quite a bit of flashy coloration here in the face. You can see, again, we have all sorts of variations of colors in the face. You've got variations of greens, blues, purples, very dark reds, oranges, like a lot going on when it comes to the coloration here of the face of our Oviraptor, and definitely shows off how beautiful this dinosaur is quite nicely. You can see the nostrils sculpted out, the beak as well. There's kind of like a slight satin shine there to the beak, a little bit to the face in general, but definitely there to the beak. Same for the crest up there, and the fine detail, the texturing of the skin of the crest also looks really nice. You can also see we've got a very nicely painted eye, and I like that the eye has like a dark tone there around it, and then we've got like an orange, it looks like, and then a black pupil for the eye. Very nicely painted, very nicely placed. We've also got the mouth open for our Oviraptor. You can see the tongue there on the inside of the mouth, and it's a little hard to really get in the inside of the mouth to see how nice it looks because it's such a small mouth, but it looks pretty good as far as what we can see. Again, very nice, very precise paintwork on the figure. As you move back here into the back of the neck, there's also some whites up here on the top of the head, but as you move back here into the back of the neck, you start to see all the feathers picking up. We get some kind of scruffy feathering there leading off of the back of the neck of the Oviraptor, which looks really nice, but we also have some skin texture here. As you move closer into the throat, you can see the skin texture pick back up, and again, even more variation of color in the throat. You can even see kind of like a light, I don't even know what color that would be, like a light variation of like a brown kind of running down the throat. And the feathers look really nice as you move down. You can see a lot of life to the feathers, kind of just scruffiness, but even as you get closer here into the neck, you see more uniform style feathering. It looks really nice. There's also a slight tint of a green in that area. As you move down into the body, you see the feathers kind of pick up in size quite a bit, and we also have this really cool yellowish tone moving along the back, but within the yellowish tone, there are also some orangish tones, which definitely makes the back of the dinosaur stand out. And you can also see like a really cool kind of like a striping effect, or like not even a striping, just like a patterning with a few variations of colors here moving through the course of the back of the dinosaur when it comes to those yellow and orangish tones. It looks super nice. They really did a fantastic job on the actual paintwork of the back here of that specific area, and definitely giving it that very nice bird-like look. As you move down into the arms, you can see more really nice feathering leading out into the arms. You've got a nice white tone there moving down the arms, as well as a darker blue, and then another variation of blue leading off of the plumage here running along the back of the arms. And there's also kind of like a white stripe that leads down there through those feathers. And it all looks super nice, like really, really well done. As we move here into the front of our Oviraptor, you can see the hand sculpts are painted with a black. You can see that we also have an egg here in the hand of our Oviraptor, painted with a bluish tone. And again, pretty reminiscent to the Oviraptor from Papo, as that one is doing the same thing. We actually have articulated arms on this, and you can see both arms articulate. So this is only the second figure of the TNG line I've taken a look at so far that had the articulated arms, as we had a Velociraptor that had it. Now we've got the Oviraptor. As you lead into the stomach, you can see more really nice looking feather detail. Again, we have kind of like a light brownish tone here on the side of the stomach. You can see the skin stretching off of the stomach right there, leading into the thigh. You can also kind of make out the rib cage slightly right there. As you move back here into the thigh, again, you can see the scruffier feathering up here, finer feathering down here. You can also see a white tone kind of bordering along the edge of the scruffier feathers. And then as you lead down into the leg, you've got a nice bulging calf muscle. You can see the kneecap right there. We transition to, again, that dark tone like we have on the hands, with a pretty nice looking foot sculpt. You've got some nice scoots down the toes, very nicely sculpted nails as well, and you can see a dew claw sculpted out over there. And then as you lead back up here into the tail feathers, I love how nice they look, because you can see them kind of hanging off of the dinosaur here. And there's just so much difference as you move along. You know, nothing looks uniform or model-like. It looks very real and lifelike, I think, as far as the way that they've sculpted the imperfections and the detailing of the feathers moving along there. And you have that nice kind of white tone, again, returning here, sort of outlining the yellow and orangish tones, as well as a beautiful blue. And we actually have variation of blue, because it kind of darkens here at the tip of those feathers as you move out there into the end of the tail of the Oviraptor. Not a whole lot of difference over here on this side, except for the fact that you can see the head of the Oviraptor is turned slightly to its left, and of course the arm positioning is dependent on where you put it. You can see the leg on this side is leading though, whereas the leg on the opposing side is trailing, but everything looks pretty much the same elsewhere. Very nice looking as well, and you can see again the sculpting of the underside of the Oviraptor looks absolutely awesome as you move along. Very nice, very fine, again, feather detail down here as well, showing up in a few spots. But that is definitely an awesome looking Oviraptor. I am really in love with this figure. I think the sculpt looks really nice, and the paint as well looks awesome. Another thing that's very nice about the figure is it stands really beautifully, has very good balance. As far as a size goes, for a length from the beak to the tail, about 5¼ inches. Maybe actually a little over. Closing in, actually closer, I would say, now that I have it perfectly on the beak, I would say closing in on 5½, but not quite. Or around the 14 centimeter area, somewhere in that vicinity. And then for a height, just a hair under 4 inches or 10 centimeters. For a size comparison, there are our usual review comparison suspects, as we have Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Golovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon next to our Oviraptor from TNG, showing you that, again, it's got a pretty small size to it, as you would kind of expect for an Oviraptor figure. Here we've got a standoff with a Mattel Velociraptor, so you can see the Oviraptor is a little smaller than your average Mattel Raptor. So I think that gives you a pretty good idea of the size of this Oviraptor. I don't feel like we need too many comparisons with this figure, because there's a classic figure out there that everyone is already going to probably know of, or even include in their collection, and we will compare it with that one right now, as we have the Papo Oviraptor here next to the TNG version. Now you can see with these two, I guess I can see some similarities. Obviously, we have a scaly version of the Oviraptor with Papo. We've got a feathered version with TNG. But there is definitely a good bit of difference once you actually see the two next to each other. You know, initially you look at it and you're like, well, there's definitely some strong similarities between the two. I mean, you've got like a turn in the head to the left, so that's kind of a similarity, but at the same time, it's a much different turn between the two. Sort of the same similar positioning for the tail. The legs are spread further apart on the Papo version, and then of course you also have an egg in the hand of the TNG version as well as the Papo version, but the Papo version relies on the egg to stand. That's part of how it balances, whereas the TNG version does not need that. It is also a much smaller egg, though, in the hands of the TNG version. Regardless, it's still cool to see two different versions of the Oviraptor that look pretty similar. We've got the scaly and the feathered version now from TNG, and they look awesome together. So this brand new TNG Oviraptor is another really nice figure. In fact, I would say it's probably one of the nicest that they've made so far. The sculpt is really well done. There's a lot of beautiful detailing throughout, whether it's the skin textured areas or the feathered areas. It's super highly detailed and looks great. The feather detail specifically, I think, looks awesome on this because there's so much life to it. There's just a ton of different variations of feathers, and they've done a great job of adding in a lot of life to the feathers themselves, again, with like imperfections in the feathers and everything, and just the way they kind of hang off of the body. It looks really, really nice. Very, very impressive when it comes to the fine detail of the feathers. We also have a pretty nice pose as the Oviraptor's just kind of walking along. Looks like it's got itself a nice little egg. Maybe it had just run away and now it's about to kind of stop and get a nice little bite to eat. I don't know, but it looks pretty cool as far as that goes. On top of that, we also have a gorgeous paint scheme. I love the paint scheme for this, and I love the actual paint application. It's extremely impressive because there's a lot of coloration added to this, giving it a very lifelike and realistic look, at the same time a very flashy look, but also at the same time a naturalistic look. So they did a very good job of choosing the coloration for this and giving it a nice naturalistic paint scheme with a lot of variation of color that, in my opinion, just kind of sets this figure as a cut above the rest than most other companies, because you don't see very many companies that take as much pride in the paintwork of their figures as TNG seems to, because they always deliver great paint jobs on their releases. So if you are interested in this, I was lucky enough to acquire this through my good friend Dino Mike Mac from a website in Hong Kong that he found. I don't know here in the United States how exactly you can get a hold of this. I'm hoping it'll start to show up on eBay or AliExpress or somewhere like that, and it'll start going up for sale sometime soon, like a lot of these TNG figures that I have will, hopefully. But if I do find a link, I will add it in the description. Of course, if you happen to find the figure in the meantime, definitely recommend picking it up. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section down below. Again, a massive thank you goes out to Dino Mike Mac for helping me to grab this one and add it to my collection. So again, let me know what you guys think, like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.